Welcome to another edition of In the Box Seat podcast with myself, Warren Len-Ferner, and we've put Andrew Harrison aside today. He's gone fishing, I think, and we've got Rahiel Radhakrishna, who's going to join me, my colleague, co-host on Gallup TV and good friend. But before we go any further, last week it was all about technology and the team behind the scenes teaching us about AI and all that goes with it. We'll be staying with technology this week because we're going to go and talk to, in my opinion, one of the greatest commentators in the world. His name is Mark McNamara. He's based in Hong Kong, and we're going to greet him and introduce him officially in a moment. But without any further ado, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Warren. Good to be joining you on this podcast. It's been a while since I was in Andrew's seat, but yeah, I'm glad that we're chatting to Mark. You mentioned that you think he's one of the greatest in the world, and yeah, he's a great commentator. I love listening to him whenever there's racing out in Hong Kong, be it Happy Valley, Sharton, and it's good to be speaking to him.
It certainly is. Mark, from all of us here in South Africa on the In the Box Seat podcast, how are you?
Great to be joining you. Thanks, Warren and Rahiel, and thank you for the kind words too. You put the pressure on ahead of the next hour or so.
No pressure at all. But let's get the conversation going, Mark. Horse racing, commentating, presenting, call it what you like. Where did it and how did it all start for you?
Oh, it was a long time ago, actually. As a 5 or 6 year old, my dad was interested in the races, and I tag along on a Saturday afternoon in Sydney. I'd go to Rosehill, Randwick, Warwick Farm, wherever they were on, and got to hear the familiar sounds of the race callers and thought that's something I'd like to do. And it progressed through school. Went off it a little bit in high school because it wasn't all that cool. And then I had a Melbourne Cup day off, was at Randwick races, and just got talking to someone. They said, we need a trial caller at the trot trials, the harness racing trials just south of Sydney. So I managed to do some practice and land that job, and it went from there. And it was in about 1994, so it was a long, long time ago, and it's been a wonderful career since then, but one that I didn't probably think would have gone to as many places as it has between then and now.
When did you get to Hong Kong? As the signal is just frozen a touch, but we'll sort that out. When did you get to Hong Kong? When did that start for you?
It'll actually be 5 years on the 20th of February, so almost 5-year anniversary of being in Hong Kong. I came here never having been to Hong Kong ever in my life. Obviously seen plenty of racing from both Sha Tin and Happy Valley, but to actually arrive in the city, it was a complete unknown. Didn't know if I'd like it, didn't know if I'd stay, and the 5 years have gone by so fast.
What was it like sort of adjusting from life in Australia to life in Hong Kong? Because obviously it's two different countries and I'm sure very different cultures. So, did you find the adjustment sort of easy or was it difficult at first?
It was pretty easy, right? Although COVID was just sort of kicking off around then. So it became very different with trying to get back to Australia for a trip or just even going about your business. Masks were mandatory in Hong Kong for so long. So you had that, but that's what it was at the time. You couldn't really experience Hong Kong totally for quite some time, but it was still such a great city, had the essence of what it always had, being bright and vibrant. And the racing scene was very different because there's 2 tracks here and they race 2 days. And having worked in both Australia and New Zealand, they raced every day. So to back it off to 2 days of racing with the trials, that took a little bit of getting used to. But despite that, the week still turns out to be pretty busy.
It's quite interesting that you guys only race twice a week because, as you mentioned, I'm sure there must have been that sort of FOMO.
There was a little bit. You'd see races in Australia that you'd call or races back in New Zealand, but then you had the option of Beauty Generations coming up to call him and the good horses in Hong Kong and the emergence of Golden 60. He won a derby about 6 weeks after my role in Hong Kong began. So that was to look forward to, and the ride that Golden 60 would have between then and when he retired, going back to last season, it made the trip worthwhile. And winning a derby in front of no one was weird. It felt like a trial day with the atmosphere, but it was one of the biggest races and the most prestigious races in Hong Kong that all the owners want to win.
Mark, just to refresh my memory, how old were you when you did your very first call, your very, very first call?
The first trial I called, I was 15, and my first gallop meeting, which was a meeting you couldn't bet on in the tab in Australia. They have a lot of non-tab meetings, not so many now as they used to back when I was young, but they were just for people in the area. And the meeting that was my first was about 5 hours south of Sydney in a place called Maria, and I was 15. Had to get the parents to drive me because I wasn't old enough to drive, and that was the first gallop meeting. So coming up, 31 years ago.
Wow. Jeez, that's an amazing story. And Brett Davis, correct me if I'm wrong, he was the commentator in Hong Kong that you took over from, is that right? Did you have much of a relationship with him?
I only met Brett for the first time probably last International Day last year, so not the one just gone, but the one before. Respected Brett. He was the voice of Hong Kong, does a great job, still doing a great job back in South Australia. But as far as actually getting to know Brett, I've only spoken to him a couple of times when he was in town, but like most race callers, hit it off pretty well. Bit quirky, like all of us, but that's what we're going to be to do the job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, it's quite an interesting job, and it's obviously quite unique because I mean each commentator has their own style and which they go about it. And how did you sort of come up with your style of commentating?
It's a funny one. Starting out, there wasn't a lot of social media when I first began, and I think that was probably a good thing. But they used to have the racing forums, and my mate sent me a post on a racing forum where it rated me a very, very boring caller, 2 out of 10. They listed the New South Wales callers. I think I was 18, 19 at the time. So back then, it hit home a little bit that, okay, maybe I'm not doing something right here and need to develop and add some more excitement in. So I took that a little personally and something to work on, and just worked on that. And then you'd get feedback and you'd hear things and you'd read things, and sometimes you take them, they'd work, you try things down, they still don't work. And it got to the point where I think I need to go to the races and enjoy myself. So I go to the races, enjoy myself, have a good time, respect the fact that the punters are still, some are winning, some are losing, so you don't want to forget that, but you still want to go and have fun at the same time.
That's you mentioned that you've got to take it to consideration, and I think us as presenters too, that you've got punters on course, some are winning, some are losing, and if you sort of single out the favourite, who everyone's backed, and it's run tailed off last or second last, you don't want to sort of rub salt in the wound, really, do you?
Not at all, because you're just going to get on a hiding to nothing doing that. If it's gone terrible, point out it's gone terrible by all means, but don't dwell on it and rub it in, because you're right, people have done their money and they don't want to be told by some smart aleck who's trying to make a funny quip about the favourite who's been tailed off 10 lengths, or even one that's not a favourite's been tailed off 10 lengths. Someone's done their hard earned on that horse, no matter who it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, while we're on the point of sort of obviously speaking about favourites and criticism and all that, I mean, when it comes to people who are in the public eye, there's often a lot of eyes on you and you get criticised quite a bit. I mean, what's it like for you guys, out in Hong Kong? I mean, how's the criticism there?
It's not too bad. Actually got rid of all my social media. Twitter was the last one to go. It comes with the territory. Everyone gets criticised on Twitter, but the more you do the job, the less you think, well, it's happened to so-and-so today, so-and-so will get it tomorrow, everyone's going to get it. You're your own harshest critic. If you've had a bad day, you come home and you don't need to be told by someone with an alias on Twitter that you've done a bad job. It's just coming to terms with the fact that, okay, you need to turn the page, you're as good as your last race, get on with the next one and nail that one, and then hopefully that will temper what's happened in the past. But it takes some getting used to. Once you get used to it a little bit, you can block it aside, but you should be pretty hard on yourself.
Yeah, because it's impossible to please everybody all the time. I mean, someone's going to think you've tipped the wrong horse, or you've said the wrong thing, or we are human beings, as I say often live on television. We're humans. We may make an error. We may call a gelding a filly or a filly a gelding. We're humans. We make little errors. It's just hard to be faultless. And no one's faultless, really.
Yeah, it might even be down to one. They don't bring too many fillies to Hong Kong. Lady Billy's still here. If she's not retired, she's been disappointing in Class 5. But you get more geldings named with female names. We've got Aurora Lady at the moment, Lady's Choice. they're both male horses. So that's the hardest part to remember, that they're not actually fillies.
Yeah.
And because there isn't too many of them here.
What is the reason though behind that? I mean, not being there for there not to be many fillies.
There's no breeding here, so it seems easier just to deal with the geldings. You don't have to worry about them coming into season and coping with the heat. So you get the odd one come in, but most trainers seem to want to stick with the tried and true method of just sticking with the boys and keeping their mind on racing and not too much else.
Mark, you're very quick thinking in your calling. You come up with the most unbelievable phrases.
Yeah.
Are they planned? Do you just wing it? Does it come to you in the last millisecond with 200 to go? How does that work?
It's a bit of both, actually, Warren. Sometimes I'll have, on a big race, something working in the background, it pans out right. Tend not to use the situation's absolutely perfect, but a lot of it's just off the cuff. I'm a bit of a weird person, as most of the people that know me will tell you. Bit of a pest, bit annoying. So I try to be on the toes quickly and just try and come up with something that will add to the occasion. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. When calling a race a few months ago, went to say it was like it landed on them like a seagull on a chip. I said like a chip on a seagull, and it was live. I got the Mickey taken out of me for it and fully expected it and fully deserved it.
I mean, that just that one we were talking about with that South African horse,
Midwinter Wind.
Midwinter Wind. I mean, of course, with Luke Ferraris, who's we all know personally, and all the Keegan and everybody there that we follow with such great interest. Carice was on last week. But Midwinter Wind, I mean, that was great, that chirp, coming home with a gale force behind it.
That was just a bit of a word association, wind and gale. I had to double check it was that horse because the last time he was spotted in the call, he was second last at the turn. And
Correct.
Boy, he was enormous. He'll race on Sunday at Shard 10, but you mentioned Luke Ferraris. He's just having the best season. He's teamed up with Mark Noonan, who trains Midwinter Wind, and they're just providing winner after winner.
Yeah.
What's your sort of relationships with the trainers and riders there?
Know Luke pretty well, actually. Don't socialise too much with them. Do from time to time. Interview them a lot, so have a good relationship with them and can approach them and do interviews and stuff. But yeah, there's none that I think, I don't really want to talk to him or don't really want to do that. They're all really helpful, and when it comes to wanting stuff from them, be it an interview or something for a television show, 99.9% of the time they'll all say yes.
Mark, what are your thoughts on well, first of all, have you been to South Africa? Have you ever been to our beautiful country?
No, seen plenty of racing there, Warren. Watched a few of the shows on the shark cage diving too that you've got over there, which looks scary and awesome at the same time, but no, never been to South Africa.
Okay, well, we need to, if that's on your bucket list, we need to arrange that. We need to get you here because it'd be lovely to have you in our beautiful country. So what are your thoughts on South African horses, or, that have been there and you follow a bit of racing in South Africa? What do you think of the quality of South African horse flesh?
We haven't really seen the best of them here in Hong Kong due to the fact that the quarantine restrictions were so tight and the effort it took for the horses to get from South Africa into Hong Kong. They've changed that now, and with Midwinter Wind doing what he did, hopefully that can be an influx for more of them, because there's no doubt they can compete on not only a Hong Kong stage but an international stage as well. And the horsemen you guys have provided, Douglas White's, Keegan's here, Luke Ferraris, Lyle Hewitson, just to name a few. Great horseman, Brett Crawford's coming, Tony Millard's been here. It's just been a mainstay as far as the two-legged variety goes, so yes. No reason why they can't ply their trade with what they do with the horses they get in Hong Kong, with the locals coming up here either.
Yeah. What's the talk, what's the vibe? I mean, Brett Crawford, and that news broke, and of course Brett, wonderful human being, his son James, again, whom we really are blessed to speak to and be with on a weekly basis. And the hype must be good. It must be big now.
It must be, yeah. He's been on the radar for a while, I think, as Brett, and finally things have fallen into place for him to arrive. I assume he will be here about April to start setting up the stable, which is what most of the new trainers tend to do, and then they'll kick off next season. But he's going to follow in the footsteps of Pierre Rung, who's only in his third year of training, and he nearly won the premiership last year. Mark McNamara's only a newcomer to Hong Kong as well. So they've got off and running, and that's the important thing in Hong Kong. Get off and running, get some wins on the board, because if you struggle a bit with the wins, then all of a sudden the locals think, well, is this person bad luck? And it's hard to attract horses, and they start to drift to other stables. But Brett's obviously an excellent, great trainer, and they don't bring ordinary trainers to Hong Kong.
You weren't with us when Andrew and I interviewed Carice, and I asked him that question about, that bad luck, which is very real, because superstitious, because Keegan de Mello is now starting to hit his straps. I mean, he rode a beautiful race yesterday and a lovely winner. I mean, he is a world-class rider. There's no debate about that.
That's it. And you're right, Charming Steed at Sha Tin on Wednesday night for Casper. It's just so hard to get momentum. And Keegan doesn't get the rides on the favourites like he would, say, in South Africa. So he has to toil away with some bigger priced horses. And Charming Steed was 20-1 last night. And then try his best to do it. There is no doubt he's such a capable rider, but it's momentum. They want Zach. They want Zach first, they want Zach second, they want Zach third. And then the other boys all have to try and get the best ride they can in the race. And Keegan has shown, when he's given an opportunity, he's right up there amongst them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard because, you've got a top-class rider, but, with no disrespect, if you've got an average horse underneath you, you can be doing your greatest, but the horse is also doing the greatest, and they're just not matching up. The rider and horse don't match. But as you say, things will change, and he will certainly start flying properly, as we know he can, Keegan.
Given that you mentioned Zach, I mean, obviously Zach and João Moreira, they had that rivalry going for the Jockey Championship. I mean, what was that like to watch?
That was great. Two of the world's best riders. Just, you knew they were going to go out there and it was going to go down to the wire. They were so far in front of the premiership. They did get the best rides, but they were the best riders in Hong Kong. And it was back and forth. Douglas was the king for so long, 13 premierships. Then Zach took over. Then Joe arrived. Then Joe won premierships. And then Zach. So you went into the season thinking, this is going to be really close this year, and it was. And now with Joe gone, Zach's just in a class above everyone else. He's so far in front of the premiership, and he's been here for so long. He knows how it works, and he's got the ability and everything to go with it. He's just meticulous in his planning.
Is it possible for someone else to sort of close that gap with him, or is it's just too hard?
James McDonald, when he was here on a short-term stint, he was racking up the winners quickly. So someone like him might push Zach. Karras always up there, top 3 every year. But James comes in like Zach. The trainers want both of them. They get the best horses. And James, if he came here, might make things interesting for Zach. At this stage, James just fly out in short-term contracts. But that would be interesting. McDonald and Purton for a full season head-to-head.
Yeah,
I've got
proper riders.
I've also got huge, not right now, but in a few years to come, huge expectations. Me personally for Luke, I think he's got he's young, and he's got, but that's in a few years' time. But wow, what we're seeing now, we can only be excited. Challenges in your career thus far, Mark? What has been maybe your biggest challenge?
Every day you challenge when you go to the races, but as far as some race meetings. Race meeting in New Zealand was a harness racing meeting. It snowed for the last race and you could hardly see anything. And vision's generally the challenge, the hardest part of all. That or an ordinary concentration day. And calling it Happy Valley, the angle there is terrible. You're about 100 metres before the winning post. You have to call the finish off the big screen. Luckily, Tom Wood, who's the other caller in Hong Kong, does most of the Happy Valley meetings. But they run to here, and you think they're nearly at the finish, and then they don't finish till way down here. Sha Tin's not too bad. You're a little bit before the line, but Happy Valley, it's a challenge and a half. So it was getting some used to calling live and then off the telly for the finish. Hazy days, it's just visibility. They've been the biggest challenges that you cope with. A hazy Hong Kong day where they're hard to see down the back, or a really bright sunny day. Snow day in New Zealand, fog days in New Zealand, but that's the beauty of the job. Every day is different.
I mean, you mentioned Beauty Generation and Golden 60 early on at the start. You've obviously called a lot of horses home. I mean, if you were to sum up a top three, who would be in that top three?
Romantic Warrior. He's number one, even though Golden 60 beat him. The fact that horse has gone to several different countries and won in Australia, Japan, Dubai, and Hong Kong. Golden 60's up there as well. Didn't really get to see the best of Beauty Generation. He was just starting the slide down back in February of 2020, but he'd have to go in the top three because was fortunate enough to call him. But three great horses, but Romantic Warrior is just something else.
I mean, he's the type of horse that he can do the work, and he just seems like he's got so much of heart and guts.
He does. He just doesn't seem to have any vulnerability. They can take him on, they can ride to beat him, they can give him a tough run, they can box him away. He just finds a way to win. It doesn't matter if it's here, if it's in the Southern Hemisphere, if it's in the Middle East. He just does it everywhere.
Yeah, special horse. Absolutely special horse.
Mark, you do a lot of presenting as well at the races, and it was lovely to hear. In fact, the whole team over there, you know, Jenny's selections and Tom and the whole team. I can't remember everyone's name. I battle with names. John.
I think it's Paul, Jenny, Tom, Mark.
They're up here. Right? You see, hence the young brains. You see. So that side of it
there as well as the fighters.
Mick, that's right. And you obviously you enjoy the presenting, but commentating your first choice or other way around.
Yeah, well, I do love commentating. I came here as a commentator. Presenting's been something that I hadn't done a whole lot of. Done studio presenting, just throwing to racetracks in both New Zealand and Australia. But coming here and hosting racing to win and taking over, Andrew Lejeune on arrival in Hong Kong was the race night host. So I used to just be the offside. I could sit there and just throw in the odd comment and cross to Jenny for every second horse in the paddock. Then Andrew left and Tom and I got moved up one, so you had to take on the lead presenter role. The boys don't forget to remind me if I'm not presenting and calling. I only work about 12 minutes a day, so as opposed to calling and presenting, you do work a lot more hours downstairs than you do upstairs.
Yeah, it's lovely to get both sides of the microphone, but calling is as you say is your preference. I want to just change, just to jump around a bit. How old are you?
46. So be 47 this year.
1978.
I think that long ago was still at school and working at McDonald's.
1978 or 78?
1978 fold, correct, yes.
I was also born 1978. What month is your birthday, Mark?
July, end of July.
Okay, we December. Well, I don't know. This young man was what year were you born?
2002.
2002.
I don't like these 2002 kids. They make you feel even older than what you are.
Now, talking about kids, what kind of a kid were you growing up? Were you precocious? Were you well behaved? Were you naughty? What kind of a kid were you?
No, I was actually quite well behaved as a kid. Got worse as I got older, and now I'm just an absolute pest. Started probably towards the end of high school when I discovered racing more than studies, and ended up spending far too much time at racetracks instead of school. So as that went on, I've sort of changed a bit and annoy everybody, pest, play pranks on people. So gone full circle from when I was a kid.
Was there ever a backup if commentating didn't go down the right, if it didn't work out?
No. Had it not worked out, I reckon still probably be working at McDonald's cooking Big Macs and cheeseburgers, because that's what I did for 3 years before I was lucky enough to get the job.
Quite interesting, yeah. I mean, what was that experience like working in a fast food place?
It was actually really fun. You got on well with the kids that worked there. We're all about 15, 16, 17 at the time. We'd all hang out together. You worked hard, but you also learnt about responsibility, being on time, and customer service as well. But it was actually a lot of fun working at McDonald's, despite what you hear.
Sure.
Most embarrassing moment while commentating? What's happened? Some funny moments that you look back and you think, oh my gosh.
There's been a few. Chip on a Seagull's up there from the other day. I had a guy in New Zealand. I was calling a race at Timaru, and they were at the 600 metre mark, and the tech came in and just unplugged the headphones out of the box. And I thought, what's going on here?
Sure.
And anyway, I said to him after the race, Gary, we were mid-race. And he said, oh, were we? I didn't think this was working. So I was going to get angry, and I figured, what's the point? It was 5 seconds. We just have a laugh about it and move on. So it's been that. There's been a lot of embarrassing moments, but off the top of the head, I can't think of two.
Have you ever sworn on air?
Sorry?
Have you ever said a sort of a bad word or sworn on air?
Bad word. Not to my knowledge, I haven't. Been luckily enough, I haven't swallowed any bugs either during racing. I used to call a lot of night meetings at the harness racing in Australia. So I did choke on some chips, and I won't tend to eat once the races started. One night at the trots in Australia, I scoffed them down before they were about to start, and made it to the 200 and went around it. So that taught me a lesson that you shouldn't eat chips just before they're about to race.
Clyde Basil, one of the commentators here in South Africa, he swallowed a fly. And I remember listening to the commentary, and all he did, I think it was way a bit before your time, and he was commentating the race, and he said with 400 to go, and he said, I've swallowed a fly at the 300, and he said it. You have to say it, I suppose, because it's a reality.
Yeah, better just to say what happened rather than thinking what's gone on there. Well,
Correct.
Swallowed a fly. So luckily, there's not too many flies in Hong Kong. There's plenty in Australia, and managed to avoid them. Couple of earthquakes in New Zealand, because being based in Christchurch, they had that huge earthquake, and we had a couple of earthquakes mid-race, so that was a little bit different. And the chip one was the big thing. I got abused by a trainer as about a 15-year-old at the trials when I called her horse the wrong name, and it was actually a stablemate. They wore the same colours. And she was waiting downstairs after, and she just laid into me for about 5 minutes, called me a cheat, and that how dare I call her horse the wrong name. And it was an honest mistake. But one thing it did teach me is how important to call the right horses, and it's not fun when it does happen. So as much as I was looking for a rock to hide under back then, it was a very, very good lesson. Yeah,
I'm glad that you mentioned honest mistake, because when we do, at some stage, there can be any presenter or commentator or person that talks behind a microphone that says they've never and never will make a mistake, needs to go and have their head checked. So when a mistake is made, 99.999% of the time, it's non-malicious. You're not going to wake up in the morning and say, let me go to the races and see how many races I can bugger up. Or it's not done on purpose. We humans, as I said, we make a mistake. We, unfortunately, the two of us have both been caught swearing on live television. But I mean, that was we both thought the microphones were off. The race had been run, and with 800 meters into the race, I passed a comment, and it wasn't a very lovely comment, and of course it went all over the world. But that just these things happen, I suppose. Live television, if you haven't clicked the button, make sure the button's off.
I guess that's what makes live television so entertaining and fun.
It does, and that keeps YouTube going, bloopers and clips like that, doesn't it? Everyone's done it, but haven't sworn. Closest thing came was at a trial meeting in New Zealand at a place called Ashburton, and the camera guy was in there between races and knocked the switch off for the microphone. He was looking through the crowd with binoculars, and he was commenting on this lady in the crowd who had red knee-high boots on and dreadlocks, and he was making a comment on her appearance. And we were laughing about it, and Stuart rang up and said, just to let you know that your microphone's on. So I don't think she heard it, but there are a few worrying moments in that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Your other interests, Mark, your hobbies, and is it only racing, or what else does Mark McNamara enjoy?
I love rugby league. Always been a huge rugby league kid growing up in Sydney, where rugby league is king, so follow that very closely. Don't mind the football coming in from England, more so here in Hong Kong because the hours are slightly better to watch it than Australia. Huge plane nerd. I love aviation and everything to go with it. I think the colours of the planes and the jockeys' colours all intertwined as a kid, so that was something that I enjoy reading about aviation, and actually do a fair bit of running here in Hong Kong. Never did too much elsewhere, but the suits were starting to not fit all that well. So the Hong Kong food's pretty good, and Had to do something about that so the buttons on the suit could do it.
Sure. I mean, a sport like paddle has sort of kicked off here in South Africa, and I'm sure it's probably something that's been in Hong Kong for a while. But I mean, is it something that you've played, or do you play it?
Luke plays paddle. I've played pickleball a fair bit. Jenny introduced pickleball to from the team for those that wanted to give it a try, and that was about 3 years ago. And we play most times once, if not twice a week, and it's great fun. But have seen paddle. There's some courts out towards Sha Tin, but living in Happy Valley, pickleball's easier just down the local club.
Yeah, we play Rahiel and I play every twice a week. We've got a bit of a club going, and it is great fun. And yeah, as you say, you've got to try and keep the waistline in trim. So that's why I do it. He doesn't. He's like a stick insect. He's so thin.
Yeah. He looks like it. You get Ferraris back there for a visit. You have to get him on the court.
Absolutely.
He's a big pedal man.
Absolutely. Sure. Talking about eating, your favourite meal? I mean, what do you enjoy eating, Mark?
McDonald's. It's still my favourite. There's a McDonald's on course at Happy Valley over here too, but they close just before the last, so got to get it at the Happy Valley one on the way home. But it's my go-to. Nachos, fried food. Not a big cook. We're not big cooks in this house, so like to get the food delivered. And some nights it might be Chinese, some nights Western. But chicken schnitzel, chips and gravy is my absolute favourite. But it's hard to find in Hong Kong. That's more a visit to Australia meal.
Are you a punter? Are you able? I mean, I don't know what the rules and regulations are. Are you allowed to gamble? Are you a punter? Do you own a share in a racehorse?
Punt, yes, we can. We have to do it through accounts. Don't punt, especially if I'm calling. It's each to their own, but just make the decision that wasn't for me to be a punter while I call. I know some of the boys do, and it's completely understandable that they want to. When it comes to ownership in Hong Kong, you have to be a member of the club. So you can't have anyone just come and buy a share in a horse. So there'll be no horses in Hong Kong. Did have a few in Australia. They weren't very fast. The last one retired last year. And I've got a few paces because harness racing was a very big love because that's where it all began.
Sure.
And I've got one left out of a broodmare I bought in New Zealand. So down to one horse, and that's more than enough at the moment.
Oh, quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously you see a lot of, I would say, a lot of new faces when it comes to the owners' ranks in Hong Kong.
You do, and you have to go in a ballot to get a permit. It's so restrictive here about owning horses that you go in a ballot and you get a permit. Some people might have 2 permits. Obviously, the beauty people, they've got plenty of horses. They get plenty of permits, but you have to be a fully paid member of the club to be able to go in the ballot to get the permit. So there's a sale coming up, the ISG sales upcoming. You can't just walk in off the street and think, oh, I'll buy this horse and race it over here, because if you're not a member, if you bought it, don't know what would happen. You'd have to export it, I guess, back to Australia or South Africa or England to race it, because if you haven't got a permit, you can't race it here.
Is it sort of one horse, one owner, or can 3 sort of people be involved in one horse in a partnership?
No, they do have some syndicates here. How many are in that syndicate, I'm not sure. You can have 3-4 people in a horse. You'll quite often see a number of owners in different horses, but that was very different coming from elsewhere. Not sure what it's like in South Africa, where syndicates are huge in Australia and New Zealand to try and get as many people involved as possible, and you can come from all walks of life to own a horse. And here, thought, well, I might be buying a share in a horse because can't afford a membership to the club.
Mark, how have you noticed from back then, I don't want to say too far back then because we're only 46, that's very young, you know. From back then, you know, how have you found commentating and presenting, but just commentating because that's what you've done most of your life, changed, you know, in terms of the style and in terms of technology? How have you seen the change?
It's the same as when I started. You go, you learn the colours, you use binoculars, you call the race, you call the last bit when they get close enough to the winning post to not need the binoculars anymore. If it's a straight 1,000-metre race at Sha Tin, you'll call the start off the telly because just found using the binoculars, you miss too much. Biggest change noticed from when I started to now is how much slower it is, my calls. It used to be way fast, racing the horses. And the presenting has probably helped that too, because it used to be too fast. You'd get in race caller mode when you'd present. So you had to bring it back a bit, and that's probably helped the calling as well. Technology-wise, it's all the same. You generally have television, 2, 3 televisions in a box. One's on a live feed. One is on dividends. You've got your binoculars there. And all the gear that you use around the world is pretty much the same brand of Glen Sound. So headphones, Glen Sounds, binoculars with a stand, and away you go. It could be here, it could be at Grayville, it could be at Ascot, anywhere. It's all the same.
The crowds. Now, we have crowds in South Africa at our big meetings, the Hollywood Bets Durban, July, and all the other big races around the country. Midweek in KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, we're quite blessed that we do have quite a good support from punters, but nothing like Hong Kong and the crowds, the buzz, the noise, that must spark you up.
It does. There was 80,000 or 85,000 at Chinese New Year going back to the end of January, and it's an amazing, like, things at Chart 10, the crowds have been okay, but when you get a Chart 10, it's fantastic. Happy Valley, it's something else. If you've never been to Happy Valley races, it's just like a party. Every Wednesday night they get 12, 15, 20,000 there. There's a band, there's a beer garden. It's like a party with races. There's a race every 30 minutes. It's right in the middle of the city. It's surrounded by high-rise apartments. It's the most unique venue. It's just a good, fun Wednesday night out Happy Valley.
I mean, in South Africa, only on our big days do we have sort of entry fees into the race course. Apart from that, on normal race day, it's free. I mean, what's it like in Hong Kong? Is it free to the public, or do they have to pay?
It's $10 on Octopus card to get in. So $10 Hong Kong. Not sure what that equates to rand-wise, but I know it's $2 Australian. So it's pretty cheap to get in. And then you've got options. You can go in. You can pay your $10 to go to the beer garden. There's a McDonald's there. There's food options. And then you can get restaurants. I think for about 700, you can have, or you can eat, or you can drink in a couple of the restaurants for the afternoon. So it caters for anyone with any budget. And it's just enormous Chart 10. It's about 7 levels, the grandstand, and all different sort of restaurants. It's something to behold when you come and see it.
We have to go. I mean, I don't know what we're going to do, whether we're going to have to structure a winning bet or take a lotto ticket or do something, but we have to. My wife has been. She's been to Hong Kong, and she's a professional photographer. She's been over. Hollywood Bets have sent her. Sporting Post, the publication in South Africa, they've sent her. I need to go because, and so does Rahiel. We need to make a plan. As we said to Carice last week, it's got to be on our bucket list, and it's got to be quite up at the top, really.
He's got plenty of room too, Carice. So if you're looking for somewhere to stay, he'll put you up for sure.
What's the nightlife there in Hong Kong, Mark? Are you much of a night person?
Goes in phases. Sometimes going, just like being home watching telly. Actually, I'm a rather boring person when I'm not working, but it's a good night out when you do want to go out. You can go to good places. Uptown, which are packed. If you want to go to a nightclub, you go nightclubs. So, yeah, the nightlife's great, and there's actually no responsible drinking laws in Hong Kong, so you can keep going to your heart's content. And, yeah, coming from Australia, where there's very strict alcohol drinking laws, it was quite different, and it was good.
Yeah, you can just drink until you fall out, and you can't anymore.
Until you fall out. I've actually seen people asleep at the bar, wake up and then go again.
No, that's terrible. You're alcoholics.
It's shocking. I was outraged.
Mark, just a couple of fun questions, I like to call it. We're in the home straight. With 200 to go, we're going to wrap up soon. But if you could have a conversation with a historical person, who would it be and why?
Historical person? That's a very, very good question. It'd be someone like... probably a rugby league player.
Okay.
Or even, and it might actually be a race caller called Ken Howard, who was a legendary Australian race caller and was always garnered as one of the best in Australia. So he only called on radio, but everyone relates back to Ken. So I'd say it would probably be him, rugby league player, one of the early Sharks players, the team that I follow, maybe a Tommy Bishop, who was an Englishman, and how hard it was to play back there. But from a racing point of view, Ken Howard.
Are you much of a reader? I mean, if you are, any interest in books or maybe a favorite book?
The only books I've read since leaving school has been a race book. So.
We're all the same.
There we go.
We're all the same.
There we go.
As soon as school was over, that was the end of books for me.
And another language, Mark, if you could master another language, what would it be?
Cantonese would come in very handy. I've got a few phrases, get home in a taxi and things like that over here, but a full grasp of the language would be very beneficial.
Okay. And if you were to write an autobiography, what would you call it?
I reckon serial pest.
Serial pest. Wow. No,
And do you have spare time? Is there such a thing as spare time?
There is a bit, yeah. We do get a great off season of 6 or 7 weeks off, and there is time during the week as well. It is fairly full on by the time you do the trials and the preparation for the show, but every week's the same. You get in a routine and away you go.
I've got 2 more questions left. I'm not sure if Rahiel has any more. We can wrap it up. But Mark McNamara's plans for the future, Hong Kong for as long as possible or travelling again? What are your plans? What do you want to do, Mark?
To be honest, I don't plan too far ahead. I used to when I was younger, and then you just never know what's going to happen. Hong Kong was never on the radar until I was back in Australia and received a phone call from the now boss asking if I'd be interested. So tomorrow I could get a phone call offering something. Hong Kong's home for now, very happy, but long-term plans, we'll just see where it takes us.
Favorite holiday destination?
Phuket's great,
Sure.
Fiji's good. One of the islands is always good. We went to Korea a few weeks ago. It was freezing. Might be nice to go back when it's not so cold, but it was good to visit too. But Fiji and Phuket both very, very good.
And then the last question may seem it's not a scripted one, but it may be a silly question, but it's a very real challenge that we all face. What do you do, water all the time? If you're getting, your voice is a bit gruff, you're battling with a bit of a sore throat, and we've all got to keep our voices as smooth and as clear as possible. What do you do? Because we go for the water, we go for a lozenge, but is there anything else? What does Mark do when he has a gruff voice?
Usually, I find Coke helps. I don't know what's in the Coke, or the fizziness tends to soothe it a little bit. So Coke's my general go-to during a race day. If it's bad, apple juice comes in handy as well.
Okay.
They're my 2 big ones.
Okay.
Lozenges, I don't really go down that path anymore, but you just press on. If you're sick, everyone knows you're sick, and you just get through the day and just forget it and hopefully feel better for the next meeting.
We must remember that Coke and apple juice. Apple juice, we certainly will.
I've never heard of that before.
No, well, I mean, it's there's obviously some sugar that helps in the Coke that maybe coats your voice box or your
I mean,
your throat.
we are told hot water and honey. I mean,
No, we go with hot water. We're told here in South Africa hot water and honey, which I suppose could well, it doesn't work for me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've heard that one as well. But there's so many remedies you get told between. Every time you got a cold, someone will say, try this, try that. There must be something local Chinese herbal stuff that would be good. Next time that happens, I'll have to go down the shop and see what's around.
Yeah. Well, Mark, that's really a wrap from us. I mean, we could sit and talk for 4 hours, but we've got work to do here, and I'm sure you've got a few. Well, it's evening time now. You want to get some rest, but it's just been a great pleasure. And we were sitting in the office the other day and said, let's chat to Carice, and then Rahiel said, well, we've got to try and get Mark, and we hunted you down, and just thank you, and we really do. Please God, we meet you in Hong Kong, or you come to our beautiful South Africa, and we'd love to meet you in person. But your work's great, and we love it. It's really, to be honest, barring the South African boys that ride there and train there, you're the reason we watch the racing in Hong Kong, and we enjoy every bit of it.
No, you're too kind. Thanks, Warren. Thanks, Rahiel. It's been an absolute pleasure to join you. And hopefully Luke wins a few, Lyle wins a few, Dougie wins a few on Sunday, Keegan wins a few, and Midwinter wins again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. And what we'll do is we'll send you this link, of course, onto your phone later on once the team have edited it, and we'll look forward to sharing it with you. But thanks for your time, thanks for your kindness and your humbleness. It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mark.
Fantastic. Make sure you pencil in Champions Day or a Hong Kong International Day. You'll love it.
Thank you, Mark. We will do indeed. That's it. That's a wrap then. And how wonderful to sit and talk with Mark. And You know, technology is, Andrew and I don't go mad with technology, but it's a great thing to be able to link up with these people around the world. But just lovely to chat to him and hear his story.
No, absolute. What a gem of a person. I mean, we often just hear him, but to be able to interact with him now, and that's quite great, and nice person. Look forward to hearing more of him, and good story.
Before we wrap, the most important thing is how we need to structure a winning pick six.
Sure,
because we've got to get air tickets to get over there. I mean, yes, you talk to people that have been and they say, sure, it's just you've got to be there to experience it.
I mean, like you said, I mean, it's something on the bucket list. It's something that you've got to want to be able to do. So who knows? Maybe we've got to get a straight line pick six, get his 100 times,
and then
we're off to Hong Kong.
But now, before we go to Hong Kong, there's other work to be done. This weekend, there's good racing at Turffontein and of course Hollywood Bets Kenilworth. We had Hollywood Bets Scottsville on Sunday. So plenty of betting opportunities and just business as always here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not too far away from the Derby down in the Western Cape. Obviously, 8 on 18 is going to be quite a warm water favourite there. I see the One Stripe's out. Not quite sure whether One Stripe will be taking his place or not. I think he might be scratched, but whatever the case may be, obviously 8 on 18, quite a strong favourite then. Yeah, and then we've got the Derby, we've got the second leg of the Triple Crown and Triple Tiara, and then we're gonna have the third leg there, which will be the Oaks there up in the Highveld. So lots of racing coming up, and before we know it, KZN Champion season's here, Warren.
Before you're quite right. Before we blink, it's going to be KZN Champion season. You're quite right. The Hollywood Bets Durban July will be upon us, and it's just business as always. And we just hope for a good, happy, and safe time. The last point is because there are soccer fans out there.
Yes.
Now I don't know the viewers now. I don't know too much about soccer and rugby, but you've been teaching me and showing me and telling me to support Liverpool.
That's the best team, man.
Well, I don't know if you look at their last two games, from what I can understand.
I see Tawanda doesn't agree with me, but the
penultimate game they got thrashed by a shocking side, from what I understand.
Okay.
So I did my cash there. And then last night they played and they drew. I mean, since I've followed them, they can't win a game. Are they that good?
Yeah, they're top class, man. We're top of the Premier League, 7 points clear. We're top of the Champions League, heading into the knockout stages. Okay. Life's going good for Liverpool, but it hasn't been too easy the last two games. I mean, last night's game, an interesting one, some poor decisions, but and then the game on the weekend, well, it was just a change side and they just didn't gel with one another. And it was a shock result, to say the least, because they were deep in the red to get the job done. But they'll be back. They'll bounce back to winning ways on the weekend. They'll extend that lead out in front. And I think they'll, at minimum, I think they'll do a double this season. Premier League 1 and Carabao Cup. Champions League treble, that would be brilliant. But I think I would be happy with 2. And if the Premier League's on there, I'm happy.
Okay, well, there you got staunch Liverpool supporter. I don't know if I'm that staunch, to be quite honest with you. 2 strikes, 2 losses, but nevertheless.
Third time's a charm.
Third time's a charm, absolutely. But that's a wrap from all of us. It's been great to chat with Mark and just to touch base for a few minutes about soccer with Rahiel. And we wish you all the very best as always. Punt well, be safe, be kind as always. And we will see you at the races and as always in the number 1 box.